hello there, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this entertainment content, and today will be the day I earn that subscription. For today's story, we are talking about the end of Better Call Saul. So yes, there will be spoilers. Many spoilers. All the spoilers. So this is just spoiler-tastic in every possible way. So you have been sufficiently advised. But Better Call Saul came to an end last night, and with it, the Breaking Bad universe, at least as far as we know it. So I thought we could talk about Breaking Bad. I thought we could talk about Better Call Saul. I thought we could talk about them in sort of the story of it. We could talk about the sort of legal education aspects of it. We could talk about it in a whole different frames of ways. I thought that'd be fun. So we're going to do that. So let's first start with where things ended last night. Saul Gone was the name of the episode, in which the story of Saul Goodman came to an end. So the story of Saul Goodman comes to an end in a somewhat undramatic way, in some respects. He is caught out on one of his many schemes. He is exposed. He tries to run for it, very unsuccessfully, caught by the police, and is hauled before the government. And what's really interesting about it is the U.S. attorney wants to make a deal. So apparently, what's the number one thing that sort of was interesting about it is, to me, is that he has a whole bunch of charges that are still pending, at least theoretically, from his activities with his friend in his schemes that he was doing. The whole like robbing the mall thing. Like there are federal charges there to be sure, but there's also state level charges. So it's a little bit hard to believe that on one hand that there's no state level interest in any of this. I mean, the feds have jurisdiction, to be sure, as Better Call Saul pointed out, because it's a crime involving interstate commerce. So it's what we call Hobbs Act robbery, right? We got the transportation. The truck was rented in one state, brought across state lines, distribution of more than value of a certain dollar amount. So so there is federal jurisdiction, but just because there's federal jurisdiction doesn't mean that there's not also state jurisdiction. So one of the first things I noticed is that apparently the state prosecutors are nowhere to be seen, which seems odd because his friend is currently in jail, right? Expecting Saul Goodman to show up, who apparently never will. So it's hard to believe that that information doesn't come out, and there's no interest from the state prosecutor in all this, right? The feds can only make a deal for the feds; they can't make a deal for the state level government, and vice versa, incidentally. So that was one of the first things that caught my attention. And then the feds come up with the charges that they're going to bring against him. RICO, which, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization. The corrupt organization would be the law firm in this case. The Saul Goodman law firm is the corrupt organization. He's a principal in the corrupt organization. He is using the organization for the purposes of many federal felonies that they point out. I think they said 22 or 23 different federal felonies, which sounds about right. And then he's facing life plus a whole number of years. The U.S. attorney offers him 30 years, which seems like an amazing deal. And then Saul Goodman manages to bluff the prosecutor into giving him basically 7. This seems very unrealistic because, yes, it's true that Saul Goodman only needs one juror, as he points out, but the U.S. attorney has an extremely high conviction rate. With 22 or 23 different predicate felonies that they're going to bring to bear, the idea that jury is going to hang on all of them, I mean, I don't understand why the U.S. attorney would negotiate in this position. Like, I'd take this thing to trial if I'm the U.S. attorney. Because, technically you only need one. But I've got, 30 different counts. The jury's going to convict you. There's just no way. Right? Once you lay out all the evidence, and they have mountains of evidence, I'm sure, once they lay out all the evidence, they're going to get their conviction. Even if they hang on some of the charges, they're going to get their conviction. The idea that Jimmy McGill is going to be able to pull a miracle and get the entire jury to hang with 25 different counts of RICO-related felonies, plus the underlying felonies themselves. I don't see that happening. But Jimmy McGill somehow bluffs them, basically, into saying, well, all I need is one person. Oh, okay. So I'm not going to negotiate this life plus whatever. You offer 30, and you're like, how about 7? Okay, that seems implausible. He also negotiates for particular prison facilities, which I don't think the U.S. attorney ever does, because prisons, the best the U.S. attorney could do is a recommendation, right? The in terms of prisons, right? The U.S. attorney can't control what prison you get sent to, literally, because that's within the judgment of the Bureau of Prisons as related to need. Now, often the U.S. attorney will recommend something, but they can't control it. They can't guarantee it. And they wrote it up like a guarantee, which is just not a thing, right? And that they'd recommend this particular facility, I don't see it. But those are sort of minor nitpicks. What really sort of got to me in the end about the whole thing was Jimmy McGill's confession in open court, because it doesn't really make any story sense about why he's doing it. So Jimmy McGill is before the court, apparently on his plea proffer. He's there to give his plea allocution. The judge, very reasonably, is demanding from the prosecutor why they're giving this sweetheart deal. Because the judge, of course, always has the power to reject a plea deal. Right? They can always say no. This is not in the interest of justice. So the federal judge is asking, what's up with this? So the U.S. attorney gets up to start giving his reasons. What's long considered, something we really weighed. And Jimmy McGill over here, Saul Goodman, gets up and confesses openly, and it doesn't make any sense as to why. The reasons don't make any sense. Like it's the way the story's being told. It's being done to save Kim Wexler, his former wife, whom he still cares for. But it doesn't really make sense because she's not on any kind of criminal hook. His testimony doesn't really put her on that criminal hook. And it also doesn't save her from any sort of civil hook, because she's already given sworn testimony, sworn deposition, sworn confession. She's already given it to the prosecutor in Albuquerque, and she's also given it to the widow of Howard Hamlin, who she may have had some legal culpability as it relates to the death of Howard Hamlin. And so her signed confession is still completely valid, of course. So it doesn't really make any sense that he's making this statement, because nothing he's saying can attack that sworn affidavit, because it's her sworn affidavit, right? It's still completely admissible against her. Him saying, no, it was all me, doesn't really change her legal exposure, right? It doesn't really help her much. So I don't really understand what he's trying to do. She doesn't really have any criminal exposure, as he learned from his own attorney on the plane, right? All there is her confession. So she doesn't seem to have any criminal exposure. No one thinks she has criminal exposure. She has civil exposure, but nothing he's doing really stops that from happening. If the widow wants to go after her civilly, nothing Jimmy is doing stops that from happening. So it doesn't really make any sense in terms of the story. It's like he's sacrificing himself, but there's no sacrifice involved. It's like it's all me. I did it purposefully and deliberately. It doesn't make any sense. So unsurprisingly, the U.S. attorney withdraws the deal in view of these statements, because now he's attacking the factual basis for the plea, right? So the plea agreement basically requires you to, among other things, agree to the factual predicates. If you're now contradicting the factual predicates, the plea is no longer valid. So we're going to go to trial, and either we're going to have a new plea under much less generous terms, or we're going for a conviction. And apparently he gets 86 years, and he's sentenced to ADX Montrose. Now, first of all, I'm a smart lawyer, so I know the federal system has only one administrative prison. It's ADX Florence in Colorado. So apparently we're unwilling to name ADX Florence by name. We're giving it a new name, ADX Montrose. Okay. Second of all, we see Jimmy McGill baking things in a kitchen. around other prisoners. Now, just know all the know, okay? ADX Florence is by far and away the most secure federal prison in the federal government. It is considered a supermax. The prisoners are kept in individual cells for like 23 hours a day. When they're let out once at a time, one at a time for exercise in completely contained exercise yards, which are not much bigger than their cells in the first place, right? Their toilets are in their jail cell. They have concrete beds, right? They're fed there. They shower there. Everything. It is a completely segregated unit. It's a shoe, except the entire prison is a shoe, right? So at different prisons they have shoes, the segregated housing units, which are like they're prisons within prisons, right? So at normal maximum security prisons, they have prisons within prisons, the shoes, the SHUs. The thing that makes ADX Florence special is that the entire prison is one big shoe. It's one big special housing unit with individually prisons. There is no one cooking and baking in ADX Florence. There is no one who is anywhere near anything resembling any sort of kitchen appliance in ADX Florence because it's a supermax prison. It's where they put the terrorists. It's where they put the shoe bomber. It's where they put the 9/11 bomber. It's where they put the worst of the worst, right? The truly dangerous thing. They're not coming in within an inch of anything that could even be remotely close to a lethal weapon, nor are they associating with each other in any way. So I like how this supermax prison, and they don't even really behave this way in maximum security prisons in the federal system. So this entire scene with him baking and stuff, it just broke my immersion completely. Because I'm like, this isn't ADX, this isn't ADX. This isn't a shoe where we're kept in our cells 23 hours a day and led into a concrete exercise yard that's barely bigger than the prison cell itself, an hour like every week in order to get some exercise. What do they think is going on? So my immersion was just totally broken. And he's getting 86 years apparently in this super duper max prison, which also doesn't seem completely warranted under the circumstances, to be quite honest, because although he's done many, many bad things, he himself is not a murderer, right? He covered up crimes, he facilitated crimes, he moved money, he was a drug dealer, but it seems unlikely that the Bureau of Prisons would sentence someone like Saul Goodman to ADX because he's not a terrorist. He's not a murderer. He did it himself, right? This is the place where you put the most dangerous people in the world, the spies and the stuff like that. So, like, he's probably going to a medium or maximum security prison at tops. He's not going to a shoe. He's going to Gen Pop, and he's not going to ADX Florence or ADX Montrose anyway. So this entire thing doesn't make any sense. But anyways, he gets this 86 years in federal prison. It's like with good behavior, who knows? It's like, I know, because under the federal system, good behavior can get you a 15% discount, right? So then what's 15% of 86? Well, it's roughly about 15 years. It's 14 years, right? So you get your 86 years down to 72. So he's going to die in federal prison, right? Even with good behavior, he's not going to live that long. So it's like with good behavior, who knows? I do because I've read federal law. I know the answer. So he's not going anywhere. So I don't know why he's doing any of this thing. Kim Wexler comes to visit him, and they share a cigarette together, and he gives the guns kind of gesture as she's leaving. And he's also, by the way, incidentally, another point of note, at ADX Montrose, apparently, the fences are just normal, like wire, like they're normal wire, like you would use it, like they're not even barbed wire, mind you. It's just like that normal kind of diamond gate stuff. You can see through it. Yeah, not so much at ADX Florence. First of all, you don't go outside ever. Second of all, you don't see the outside ever. right? The last time you see the outside is the time that you go into the prison. It's one of the features of ADX Florence is that the lights in order to see the outside are positioned so you can't actually see out them. You don't get to see outside, but they're in an open air. They're in an open air facility with a whole bunch of them hanging around. What kind of administrative separation unit prison is this? This entire thing is bullshit. I call bullshit on this entire thing. This is not how we do administrative separation. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad prison education. This is bad legal education. They are not letting you outside into an open air facility at ADX Florence because they're concerned about a helicopter coming in and taking people, because those are the value of the targets. Those are the value of the people at ADX Florence. If you're going to federal prison, try not to go to ADX Florence. It's a bad time. So he basically takes this sweetheart deal. He's taking this deal where he's going from a minimum security or a low security prison, right, with golf, where Bernie Madoff goes, where he's going to be there 7 years, but with good behavior, of course, he can reduce that by 15%. So it's more like 5. And he's at Club Fed. So he goes from 5 years at Club Fed to 72 years in Supermax ADX Montrose for no advantage that's clear. It's not clear why he's doing it. He's not getting Kim any advantage. She's on much of the civil hook as she ever was. Her criminal exposure is no different than it ever was. He's not gaining anything from it. He's certainly not getting his Bluebell ice cream. You know? And also, that's also a nice point, Andrew. Also, the fact that Kim Wexler in her purse, apparently, into ADX Montrose, mind you, into ADX Montrose, is able to be in a room alone with her client. No. And also is able to bring in cigarettes and a lighter. No. They're going to search your stuff when you come into prison, even if you're an attorney. They're going to search you for contraband. All right. And at ADX, I don't know how they do it in other prisons, but at ADX, you are not meeting in a room where you can have physical contact with your lawyer. Assuming you get to meet your lawyer in ADX, which I don't even know if that's a thing, to be honest, but assuming you do, it's going to be in a partition divide with the phones and everything. You're not meeting face to face in order to share one last cigarette together. And first of all, why is she not being searched for her lighter? Like, that's not contraband. A lighter. I mean, maybe Kim doesn't know that, so it's not like they're going to necessarily haul her off to jail for trying to bring in a lighter and cigarettes. But they're not gonna let you bring that in, and they're definitely for sure searching her. So this is the whole thing. Yeah. So yeah. Atro says you'd be fine with seeing outside. See, that's the thing about ADX Florence. You don't get to see outside. That's the nature of ADX Florence. You don't get to see outside ever. ADX Florence is the only administrative prison in the United States. It's in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains. It is never had an escape ever. It is super, super locked down. And there is no going outside. There's no viewing outside. There's no seeing outside. There's no open air anything. The whole thing. And and also, what is ADX? Oh, it's just short for administrative. I forget exactly what it stands for. But the A is administrative. It's administrative detention unit or something like that. It's I forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but ADX is the acronym for the name of the prison. So ADX is the designation. It's administrative detention unit. I can Google it real fast. ADX Florence. Let's see. It is. You want to learn about ADX Florence? Let's learn about ADX Florence. We can learn something positive together. Let's go to the administrative maximum facility. So it's AD max. Oh, that's why it's it's ADX. So it's administrative detention max. So that makes sense. So it becomes AD max. Let's learn a little bit about the real life version of Better Call Saul, where Better Call Saul apparently is going, which doesn't make any sense. So we can learn about this horror show of a prison together, the place you don't want to go. All right. So let's learn a little bit about this. All right. So the Administrative Penitentiary, Florence, Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX, USP, so United States Penitentiary, Florence, ADX Max, also known as just ADX Florence, is an American federal prison in Fremont County near Florence, Colorado. It is operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, a division of the United States Department of Justice. It was opened in 1994 and is classified as a supermax or control unit prison, thus providing a higher, more controlled level of custody than a maximum security prison. ADX Florence forms part of the Federal Correctional Complex, which is situated on 49 acres of land and houses different facilities with varying degrees of security. Well, it's all super secret or super secure. ADX Florence was commissioned when the Federal Bureau of Prisons needed a unit designed specifically for housing those prisoners most capable of extreme sustained violence towards staff or other inmates. As of August 2022, there are a total of 341 inmates in the house. They are confined 23 hours per day in single cells with facilities made of poured reinforced concrete to deter self-harm and are on 24-hour supervision carried out intensively with high staff to inmate ratios. It is not a fun place. It has a maximum capacity of 551 inmates, of which there are 344. It houses male inmates, women who are, it's an all-male prison. Women who are deemed to be special management concerns are confined to Fort Worth, Texas, apparently. That one I did not know, so you got that for me. The Supermax facility has 344 male inmates, each assigned to one of 6 security levels. It's designed for 490, but it's never been full. The facility is best known for housing inmates who have been deemed too dangerous, too high profile, or too great a security risk, even for maximum security. Yeah. The majority of current inmates have been placed there because each has an extensive history in other prisons of committing violent crimes, including murder, against correction officers and violent inmates. The inmates are kept in administrative segregation. They're confined in a single-person cell for 23 hours a day and are removed under restraint. Their 1 hour out of cell may occur at any time, day or night. The hour outside the cell is for exercise and a phone call if they've earned the privilege. The diet is restricted to ensure food cannot be used to harm themselves or create unhygienic conditions in the cell. Some cells have showers, which further reduces the amount of handling needed for the prisoners. Yeah, so this it's not a fun place. It is currently home to, among other people, it was home to Terry Nicholas, Ramiz Youssef, Eric Rudolph, and Ted Kaczynski at various points. And there's been concern that Julian Assange might wind up there, although he doesn't seem like the kind that would wind up at ADX. But what do I know? Here's a picture of a cell. It's a 37-acre facility. It's above ground. Each cell has a desk, stool, and bed, which are almost made entirely out of concrete, as well as a toilet that shuts off if it's blocked, a shower that runs on a timer, and a sink lacking potentially dangerous tap. Rooms may also be finished with polished steel mirrors bolted to the wall, an electric light that can only be shut off remotely, a radio, a television show that shows recreational, educational, and religious programming. The 4-inch by 4-foot windows are designed to prevent inmates from knowing their specific location within the complex. They can only see the sky and roof through them, so it's virtually impossible to plan an escape. Inmates exercise in a concrete pit representing an empty swimming pool, also designed to prevent them from knowing where they are in the facility. The pit is only large enough for prisoners to walk 10 steps in a straight line, or 41 steps in a circle. Correctional officers generally deliver food to the cells. Inmates transferred to ADX Florence from other prisoners can potentially be allowed to eat in shared dining rooms. Oh, there you have one on me. I did not know there was any such concepts as a shared dining room. So hey, I learned something. The prison as a whole contains a multitude of motion detectors, cameras, and 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors. And blah, 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 blah. The Bureau of Prisons allowed media to take a guided tour on September the 14th, 2007. Attending reporters remarked on astonishing and eerie quiet within the prison, as well as a sense of safety due to rigorous security measures. The 60 Minutes producer Harry Schuster said, "A few minutes inside that cell and 2 hours inside Supermax were enough to remind me why I left high school a year early. The walls closed in very fast." So that gives you a sense of ADX Florence and why I'm calling bullshit on ADX mantras. I'm like, oh, that's not a thing. That's that's not a thing. Yeah, there are documentaries on the ADX Supermats. It is a depressing place. It is a sad place. It is as close as human beings have ever come to developing the prisoner of Azkaban, the prison of Azkaban with the Dementors. It is a place that will suck away your soul. So I recommend staying away from there. So yeah. So what else can we say about the show? Okay, let's talk about the show as a general, and let's also talk about Breaking Bad as a general in general. All right. So first of all, I have mixed feelings about both shows. I am not like this. I am not one of these guys who's going to sit here and say that I think that every show of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul was flawless masterpiece. I think the shows were great. I think many of them were great. I think there were definitely some fantastic episodes, fantastically well written, but I don't think it was a universal home run. For example, I didn't particularly much care for season one of Breaking Bad. I just didn't really work for me. In particular, they gave Walter White this Deus Ex Machina of the invitation from Gray Matter to join, which would have solved all his problems. And I don't think they sufficiently established at the time why Walter said no. Now they tried to retcon a reason, like in later episodes, they tried to retcon, like basically why he said no or try to establish it. But I didn't feel like they justified the decision well enough at the time. And also, I just felt like not a lot happened in season one. It just felt like a little eh. But that being said, of course, I thought much of it was great. Ozymandias is a fantastic episode. I thought the ending to Breaking Bad was fantastic, well written, very satisfying. El Camino, also well written, satisfying. Nice little resolution for Jesse Pinkman in terms of that. Better Call Saul had mixed feelings throughout. I think as a whole, it definitely had the overall quality of Breaking Bad. I think that many of the shows were well written. I think many of the episodes were well written. I think that the stories and characters were well thought out. Some of it was a little contrived, but that's okay. I mean, not everything can be perfect. And the last episode of Breaking Bad didn't really work for me on any sort of level. It felt unsatisfying. It felt unsatisfying, at least in part, because I didn't feel like a lot of it was earned. Like that, that's Gene, that Better Call Saul Goodman would be hiding in this dumpster seemed unearned, as opposed to like trying to drive out of town, trying to get away. Um, didn't seem earned. Like he would get on the highway and trying to escape or something, or he would have some sort of alternate transportation or alternate license plates. That he wouldn't be prepared for those kinds of contingencies. So it felt like him being captured was a little unearned by the episode. I felt like it was a little simplistic. Um, I felt like the whole plea negotiations thing I didn't really buy. U.S. attorneys are not necessarily they're not known for being that weak. Like this guy has a flawless record apparently. He's going to feel afraid of this guy. Like he's going to with 22 or 23 different counts of RICO felonies, like he's not going to be able to get a conviction out of that. I don't see a plea deal happening. I don't see him being bullied into a 7-year term for damn sure. Like it's not a weak case by all measures, this is not a weak case. I mean, Saul Goodman has a story, but as the prosecutor himself points out, you think the jury's going to buy that? I only need one. Yeah, good luck on getting your one, right? And even if we have a mistrial, we can try again, right? So even if I get a mistrial, we're just back to court all over again, and I'll get it the second or third time. It just didn't make any sense the prosecutor would deal under these circumstances. And then with this deal in place, Saul Goodman's motivations to confess to everything are just completely unclear. Like his only motivation seems to be to help Kim, but it doesn't seem to be any help of Kim. So it just seems odd. Um, it didn't really feel like, and him seeing it, like him getting these 86 years, like it just didn't feel that way, that satisfactory of an ending. So I felt it just wasn't. It didn't really work for me as an ending. It left a lot to be desired. That being said, I thought overall Better Call Saul was a fun show. I do like Saul Goodman. I do like some of the aspects of him as a lawyer. I do like his creativity. I like his so even some of his style. Like I probably wouldn't be as bold to dress that way. I dress more conservatively, but I do appreciate the mentality that allows for that, like dressing with these sharp colors and things like that. It's a little bit kitsch for my taste. Like I probably wouldn't dress that way, but to have the attitude that attire would convey is fun. Sometimes he was willing to play a little fast and loose. I mean, sometimes he was just downright unethical. To be fair, he would do things that are just blatantly wrong, but not always. And sometimes he was. I appreciate his creativity. I really liked, for example, where he had his commercials and he had that conflict with the firm that he was working for a while, where they wanted this old, tried, true, real real stoic, real safe kind of approach, and he had this really sort of brazen catch your attention approach that I liked. I liked a lot of his aspects of his flair. I liked aspects of his presentations at times. Um, there's I think traits in Saul Goodman as a lawyer that are admirable, and I think as opposed to someone like Chuck, his brother, who is this extremely learned stoic guy. I think Saul Goodman, if anything, shows a different way of doing things, and I think there's a balance somewhere in between the two. And I'm probably more on his brother's side. I'm probably more on Chuck's side, in terms of my personality. But there's definitely aspects of his creativity, his uh, his willingness to be a little bit confrontational that is fun. So it was interesting. Um, but a lot of things where he's just he's manufacturing evidence at times, faking things, faking documents. The whole thing with the Xerox store, like changing records, committing frauds. I mean, he's doing all kinds of things that are just blatantly unethical. And so but I don't think you have to necessarily go that way to have traits like Saul Goodman. I think you can push things, be a little bit mavericky while still staying within the bounds of the law. I think is there's traits there that are admirable. So it was fun. One after Magna Carta. Yeah, it's fine. Everyone wants to be like Chuck minus the crazy. Chuck's a little bit. Chuck has a little bit of a stick up his ass, and I think if anything, I have too much of that already. I think I'd like to lean a little bit more into a little freer, a little bit more willing to think creativity, to let legal mindset juices go. So that's really what I wanted to say about the series overall. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul were fun. Um, some of it was interesting in terms of the law. The way he you don't want a criminal lawyer, you want a criminal lawyer. So, I definitely appreciate much of that. So I'll answer some questions. Hi from South Carolina. Well, hello. I'm also in South Carolina at the moment. I'm visiting my parents, hence the background, and the different equipment, different vantage point, just using a webcam and a lav mic, but it's enough to get a stream done. So we're having fun. But South Carolina is treating me well. I like Breaking Bad, although it got kind of too crazy the last few episodes. I appreciate that. Hello, Stephanie. As always, we hope that you're feeling better, getting better. Thank you for keeping me posted throughout your day. It wasn't as bad as the ending of Game of Thrones. What is, right? Stephanie says, I'm demanding he do the most hated man on the internet. I'm looking into it. Yeah, so this is a Netflix show. I have to figure out how to do it. I'll probably watch one episode and then try to figure out what I want to do in terms of the series. I'll probably watch one and see what we got. Maybe I'll see if my parents want to watch it. Maybe we can watch some tonight. Get started on that. That'd be fun. You thought it meant was shaped like a shoe? No, it's SHU. Love the background. Do you love the simple background? Do you like a background like this, just a plain wall? This is the Richard Hogue. This is the Richard Hogue approach to backgrounds. If you like this kind of background, we could do this in Austin. We could just throw up a blank wall and go with that. If you guys like the blank wall, we can even choose our choice of wall colors. Ooh, our channel's becoming more and more professional. Excellent, thank you. Unabomber is that Supermax? That's right. Walt's pride was the driving force behind Breaking Bad, so I think it was appropriate for him to decline the offer. Yeah, it's just that I don't think his pride was sufficiently well established at that point in the episode. Like his motivations were not well established. They tried to definitely justify it after the fact. I just don't think it was well illustrated at the startup. Um, in normal prison, they would probably do a check on the card. Yeah. I'm in the mountains, Sherry. I'm near Greenville. Is this me seven? No. Looks like I'm about to take some self portraits. Is there a cap on time of detention in the U.S.? No, not ultimately. No, a lot of people die in prison from old age. Here in Brazil, you only need to serve a third of your sentence. Then what's the point in giving you the other 2/3? I mean, if you only have to serve a third of your sentence, what's the point in giving you the other 2/3? Is there a cap on detention in the U.S.? No, not ultimately. You can get life in prison. You can get life plus. People are. Please don't change to filming in a void. Okay. I was a little disappointed someone like Saul, Jimmy. You think someone like him doesn't snitch. Yeah, and also he doesn't snitch for any particular purpose. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. Well, I just really want to talk about the show a little bit, talk about my thoughts on the episode. Thought it was a little bit wanting. I'd be interested to see what you guys thought, things in the comments. Maybe some of you guys really, really loved it. I'd be interested to hear in the comments, in the YouTube comments, if anyone really loved this, if this was really everything they were hoping for and why. I'd be open to seeing what about, you thought really did it for you. Marcus says it made perfect sense. You're crazy. Well, Marcus, perhaps you could express your opinion with a little less consternation. Yikes. Maybe you could express that with a little bit more rationale. I would definitely watch if they want to do another show based on the character. Then either Mike Ehrmantraut would be fun, or we could do one on Gus Fring. Could be fun. You're the man. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. By the way, we have a new emote for the members. It's LSD Justice. If hopefully that's working for you guys. Always trying to produce new things for you guys. I haven't watched since the last few episodes of last season. Just got sick of the slow pacing. Vince Gilligan is making a series that's similar to X-File. Fishby. Never watched an episode of either show, but I like listening to you. Well, thanks. It's very kind. It was nice with you and Scott earlier. Yeah, I thought that went pretty well. What game should you play on Xbox? I don't know. All right. Well, I'll sign up for now. This has been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been enjoying this content and want to see more of it, you want to see more show reviews, let me know. I'll take a look at this show, Most Hated Man on the Internet, and see if that's a thing. I will get in touch with you later. I've been on Civil Law. Till later, my friends. You need to go on Crime Talk with Scott. I've been on this show before, and I'm happy to go. Again, I'm not going to invite myself onto his show. But, I invited him onto my show, and hopefully he'll invite me onto his. But I'd be happy to go, but I'm not going to be like, hey, can I come on your show? I mean, that's not cool. It's not really cool to invite yourself onto someone else's show, really. I mean, especially because I don't know Scott that well. Like, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable doing that with some of the other people in LawTube, which I've collaborated with more. So I'd feel more comfortable sending a message to someone I've streamed with a lot and be like, hey, can I come onto this live stream? Scott and I don't have that kind of familiarity yet. We've done 2 live streams together, I think. One in his channel and one on mine. Well, if we do some more, then I'll maybe like, hey, can I drop in on this episode? But, we don't quite have that relationship yet. Maybe later. But if he wants to have me on, that'd be cool. All right, later. Till later, my friends. I hope all's well. Cheers and goodbye.